Hi everyone, sorry I can't be with you today, but I'm with you remotely instead. My name's Coral Leather and I'm a social worker with Bury Council. Throughout the NIHR internship, I've been very lucky to have Dr. Stephen Hicks as my supervisor. None of this would have been possible without him and the NIHR Art GM team, so my thanks to them for their support. For me, the internship has been an extension of work completed within my social work degree programme, some of which centred around my work with a transgender and non-binary young adult. It was them and the challenges they faced accessing health and social care services that have brought me to this research and have piqued my interest. With thanks to Steve, I've been able to explore current research in sexuality and gender diversity as it pertains to social work practice. In April, I attended the LAWASCA Expert Advisory Group and have been supporting with some case file analysis, which is helping establish how practitioners contend with issues of gender and sexuality. In May, I attended an online roundtable within which researchers talked about ethical approval processes and how ethical approval was or was not granted, sometimes with interesting conditions attached. The Sexuality and Social Work Conference in July was 2 days of queer joy at the University of Strathclyde. I heard papers from a range of professionals and there were also international perspectives too. There was a strong social justice, activist and intersectional nature to the special interest group's approach, and it was great to be in such an inclusive, positive, queer space where new ideas were cultivated and welcomed. I've highlighted some of the overarching themes and challenges within the presentation. Because I have an idea for a long-term project that involves creating a service user-led focus group that enables us to improve social work services, I was hoping to happen upon some interesting theories and research methods that would enable me to move out of the quote-unquote pipe dream stage. There were two methods that I, at least initially, and with me being in the infancy of my project, felt might be helpful to me. The first of these was community-based participatory research, which, as it says, actively involves community members in design, collection and analysis. The strong co-production element is really important to me, as I want to close the gap and or reduce the power imbalance between practitioner and service user, insofar as is possible. The second method was one that I hadn't come across before. Story completion involves providing practitioners with the beginning of a story, called a stem, and asking them to continue and complete the story as they see fit. The anecdotal evidence I've collected through conducting things like lunchtime learning sessions and presentations to health and social care stakeholders leads me to believe that outside of sort of safe spaces, gender and sexuality can be divisive issues, and that practitioners don't really know how to handle or think about approaching these ideas without the anxiety of offending people. On the other hand, we see that there's kind of a commitment to protecting women's spaces, maybe without fully exploring what that might mean for example, transgender women. I like to think that using a third-person narrative approach would allow practitioners to explore their biases in more detail, or at least that's what I imagine. As social workers, we're constantly reflecting on our practice, so I had a few initial questions around both approaches. So with the community-based participatory research, my questions were around whether we can really ever fully reconcile the power imbalance between service user and practitioner, and whether recognition really only flows one way. And then when I think about story completion, I suppose my questions are around whether practitioners will really feel able to tell the story as they believe it to be, or whether they would try and craft a quote-unquote perfect answer, because they don't want to be seen to be somebody that operates in an oppressive or discriminatory way. In terms of next steps, I'd like to think about an application to the pre-doctoral fellowship, which would enable me to further my research training. I'm also looking to audit the Foundations of Research Unit via the University of Manchester. Because direct practice is something that is incredibly important to me and I'm very, very passionate about, I would like to continue to be in practice insofar as is possible, potentially looking at a hybrid role that involves me being part-time in practice and part-time in research. And of course, my original idea of creating a service user-led focus group still stands and remains an aspiration, but I know it will take some time for me to achieve this. If anybody has any follow-up questions or would like to connect with me, they can do so through the links at the bottom of the presentation. And thank you very much for listening.